Welcome to episode 13 of the Shaffer Creative Podcast. This is the 7th edition of Conversations with Creatives, and part 2 of my conversation with Animation Supervisor Mike Greenholt. Mike is currently a CG supervisor for the new Monsters, Inc. TV series for Disney TV. In this episode, Mike and I will talk more about his career in the animation industry in LA, and he shares some valuable lessons on how to be attractive to the big studios and stay employed. Shaffer Creative is a product of my family of 6, all of us pursuing careers in film or the arts. This is our place to showcase our art, document our growth, and share what we learned. We hope you'll find value in learning from our artistic convictions, our mistakes and successes, and the guidance we share as a family. In the Conversations with Creatives edition, I invite my friends, colleagues, and heroes to talk about their craft, their education, and professional life in their art. I'm Animation Director Todd Shaffer, the father, and your host on this edition of the Shaffer Creative Podcast. Is there anything online that you find that's very helpful consistently for teaching drawing and animation?
Like I said before, tutorials, like a lot of them don't help with creativity, but just one of the biggest things that helped me stay employed is learn the new stuff. Like I did hand-drawn 2D, and when that was starting to phase out, I kind of fought Maya kicking and screaming. I didn't want to do it. I think I was in denial. But then when I did learn it, I enjoyed it because there were new things about it, and it's like, if you don't like a medium, find something in it that, figure out why you don't like it, and if it's like, because you can't do this in that medium, then that's your goal for, learn that medium and try to do that thing that can't be done.
I think in any medium, your first forays into it, it's hateful. You can't stand it because you don't know it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because it's like, the thing I hear over and over again coming from any traditional media to computer generated, whether it's Maya or even Photoshop or Toon Boom or TV Paint, is like, people's like, it was so much easier to do it this way before than it is now. And it's like, yeah, until you learn it. Yeah. It's like, I liked animating on paper. I would much rather do it on the computer because you can scale things and flop things and undo things and, all these tools that, you'd have to do on a Xerox machine, or just, you might draw the perfect head. If it's the wrong size, you have to erase it and try to draw it again, whereas now you just lasso it and
that's it.
Make it 10% bigger and you're good.
Even in painting, I find painting for teaching is great on digital. You do it digitally because you got Control-Z, and you can try something else. You don't have a Control-Z in the paintbrush.
Yeah, and not to discount any traditional media, because
sure.
I love that stuff. I like to draw, I like to paint, I like to sculpt, because physical materials will give you things that a computer won't. But in a production setting, when you have a deadline and revisions, man, there's nothing like digital.
Yeah, no doubt.
Even if it's drawing. And I've done drawings in Photoshop or in Harmony or even in Procreate now that I'll show it to a director and they'll think I did it on paper. Yeah. I was sort of a first adopter for Photoshop and like digital painting, and Maya I fought, and then Maya won, and I learned Maya. But even then, after like working in Maya for 2 years, people that were computer animation majors were coming to me with questions because they had learned on another software that had been phased out, and it's like, it kind of levels the playing field quickly.
It does, really quick.
Now I try to jump on new stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have
you tackled VR?
I've played with it. I have friends that are dabbling in it and doing amazing stuff. I've tried it. I'm not quite ready for it yet. I'm interested in it, and I'm thinking about it and planning for it, but I haven't purchased any tools yet. But like I had been doing CG animation for 10 years and was getting kind of stale on it. And it was right before a new release for Toon Boom. It was Studio, Toon Boom Studio at the time, It was right before they launched Harmony. And so they put it out for $20. You could get Toon Boom Studio for $20. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
And I had, my whole life, I just wanted to do 2D animation at home, but, you couldn't without
All the mechanics.
all the mechanics. And so, I'm like, for $20, yeah, sign me up. And so I started playing with it at home, and was like, this is great for doing notes. So even I was working on Legend of the Never Beast. That was my last CG production. And so we'd get quick times from the vendor, and I would just retime it or draw over it in Harmony and just send that back, and they could just match it. And I was like, this is nice. And so I started learning it more and doing more just 2D tests and playing with 2D and Harmony. And then an opportunity came up at Warner Brothers where they're like, hey, we need an animation soup for a 2D project. I'm like, I can do that. And so I did. And
Cool.
like, if I hadn't played with that, I would have.
You wouldn't have been able to take it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. So before we jump into that,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of talent?
Talent.
Because it's a word that's used a lot.
Yeah. It's used a lot. These days it's hard to measure because artists imitate other artists and do it well, and they'll have a really slick Instagram page, but then I've worked with some of them in a professional setting, and it's like they don't have the basic drawing skills, or they can't turn a character around.
Okay.
Or they can draw that beautifully from one angle, but to turn the head 30 degrees,
Right.
it falls apart.
Ah, interesting.
And like what's not being taught, and what a lot of people don't do, is basic solid drawing. And part of that, like, the best way to learn that is doing 2D animation and flipping and turning. But now, with Flash and puppet animation, it doesn't require you to draw, and CG animation certainly doesn't require you to draw.
No,
So people that's a skill people are losing.
It's losing it for sure. Now, did Bridgman ever play a place in your development?
Yeah, I loved Bridgman's stuff because it was drawing. But it broke it down into forms and planes. Right. And in art school, my first figure drawing teacher was a sculptor. And so the first thing he had us do was build the basic human form, like in clay, and build a skeleton also. And he's like, I don't care if the names are right or attachment points. It's like, it's not an anatomy, but I want you to understand the form. He's like, if you build this once 3-dimensionally, drawing those shapes are going to be a lot easier.
Oh, that's incredible. That's a great idea.
It's true. And even now, if I'm struggling drawing a character, I'll pull out modeling clay and just figure it out. And then I have a 3-dimensional reference that I can look at. And now, too, like, having learned Maya, a lot of times I'll just build the character basically in Maya and have a maquette, and sometimes throw a rig in it too to just move it or animate it. And
it's such a great tool to have in your arsenal. The first thing I do with my kids when I'm teaching them is Bridgman. You got to learn Bridgman. Yeah. Because that's how I learned. That's what Steve Houston taught me. Sketchbooks of Bridgman. Just get a sketchbook, copy Bridgman, and you're going to understand the mechanics.
Yeah. And how all these shapes fit together.
Because most of the drawing instruction that you find in schools is like photocopy what you see, and you can't go beyond that. You're just mirroring what's there. And so that doesn't give you the ability to take that character and move it and change it and put personality into it even.
Yeah.
You're so crippled by what you see. It's all about what you see rather than what you know. And they broadcast that like that's this great thing, being able to duplicate what you see and don't do what you know. But animation is different. You have to animate what you know because there's nothing there for you to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else that's been helpful is having interests that aren't art or animation. Because, we work on these movies or TV series or whatever, and, I would say less than 2% are about artists making animation. I don't know the exact numbers, but
Such a good point.
it's usually characters that, they drive trucks or climb mountains or they cook or they, make something else. And so just having experiences outside of art and animation, like,
It's so true.
it helps you bring that to what you're doing,
Right.
or like, at the very least, like, taking a dance class just helps you understand how the human body moves, and learning an instrument helps with a sense of timing and rhythm. And some of the best animators play music.
It's one of the reasons I'm doing these podcasts, because I'm trying to get a whole collection of the arts so all the arts can learn from each other. And there's a lot of similarities that we share that you would not think are similar.
Yeah, and just, and stuff they tell you in school, but no one actually does. It's like, go see a live theater, or even like sporting events, or just like you see human bodies doing amazing things that you don't see when you're just, sitting at your Cintiq drawing, and saying, "Hey, whose brush set are you using?"
That's a question you ask when you don't know what else to ask.
No, and it's the age-old thing. Like, back before Photoshop and digital art, you'd see someone whose drawings you loved and be like, "What kind of pencil are you using?" And you go out and you buy it, and then
it doesn't help.
It doesn't help, and now it's like, oh, did you download so-and-so's brush set to use in Procreate? And it's like,
just learn how to draw.
Just learn how to draw,
Give me a quick rundown of this projects you've worked on.
Okay, I started a Disney feature in the 90s, and so I worked on Fantasia 2000 and Tarzan and Atlantis and Treasure Planet, Home on the Range.
You were in cleanup, or did you move into animation on those?
I did cleanup for a year and a half, and then the next 3.5 years I was a rough in-betweener, and by the end of that I was unofficially animating scenes.
Okay. Who were you rough in-betweening for? Did you have anybody in particular?
What was cool is at the time there was just a pool of us, and so like whoever was available would go work with different people, and so it was cool because you got to work with a lot of different animators. T-Dan was the first person that I did rough in-betweens for. And I did in-betweens for John Ripa, and I got to do like maybe 3 drawings for Glenn because his rough in-betweener like was swamped, and so but no, because you got to see how different animators work and think. I did a few in-betweens for Sergio Pablos, who like his stuff was a huge influence on just control and form. And
cool.
That was a lot of fun. And then they stopped doing 2D. I got laid off. I went to, some friends of mine started a studio, and we were just doing service work. We were doing a lot for Disney TV, and just they wanted to do a CG series, so we would get all these scripts where it'd be like model 3 characters, model a background, do a little animation test. And so we would do it. They would love what we did, but they might not like the script, or they might not pick up the series, so like nothing took off. We were hoping to get a series. And then my friend who was the head of that studio, after about 2.5 years was like, "Hey guys, why don't just go to the studios and get jobs?" Because the goal was we wanted to do service work and then develop our own concepts, but all of our time was being taken by the service work. He's like, we could just get jobs at the studio and still develop our own stuff. And so I got hired. It's funny because doing the work for Disney TV, again, it's dumb luck and everything falling into place at the right time. They wanted to do something with Mickey, so I modeled Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Minnie, and Pluto. We rigged them in Maya. We rigged them and animated them, and then they wanted us to do something for Winnie the Pooh, so we did that. And it was basically taking the traditional design and just adapting it. And then I had a friend that was at Disney Toons. They were starting the Tinkerbell movie, and they were struggling with the character models. And they're like, we just need somebody that can take a 2D character that's already existing and adapt it three-dimensionally. I'm like, I can do that. And again, this is like fine-tuning your reel. I went there with a reel of like, here's Mickey in 3D, here's Donald in 3D, here's Winnie the Pooh in 3D, and they're like, okay, you can do this. And so I was there for 10 years, and I started as a modeler, and after a couple months, the animation supervisor came to me and said, do you know any animators? We want to start animating these characters. And I'm like, I can animate. I'm like, okay, we'll give you a shot to animate. If it's any good, you can have another. Cool. So I got to do another, and so I was there for a couple years just doing character models and animation. And then they're like, do you think you could do some previs? And so I was doing previs too. And then they said, you're doing more than just a modeler does. We want to give you a different title. Like, what do you want to be called? And so I was working directly with the animation supervisor, so I'm like, how about assistant animation supervisor? And so I did that, and then after a while, we got more projects, and I'm like, hey, do you want, they needed a supervisor on one, and so
you became the animation supervisor.
Became the animation supervisor.
That's great.
And so, like I said, I was at Disney Toons for 10 years, and then I went to Warner Brothers and did a 2D series, which was a fun jump and kind of a recharge, because everything that was frustrating about CG animation didn't apply. We could squash, we could stretch, we could do all kinds of weird stuff. And now I'm back at Disney Television working on a Monsters, Inc. series, which has been announced. So
okay, that's good.
Yeah, Bob Iger has said we're doing this, and so that's what I'm working on now.
Cool. And that's going to release when,
Not exactly sure. It's for their streaming service, which launches in 2019.
Okay. Next week, I'll continue my conversation with Mike as we talk about the importance of having personal projects. And Mike shares with me a short animated clip from a project that he wants to write and direct. And I can tell you now, it's a really cool throwback to the early 60s style Disney animation. In the upcoming weeks, I'll be talking with an oil painter from the Henry Henchy Charles Hawthorne School of Painting. His name is John Ebersberger, and he's from Annapolis, Maryland, and he is a wealth of information. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Shaffer Creative Podcast. You'll find the show notes and more information about Shaffer Creative at shaffercreative.studio. Music is by Lee Rosier.